Thank you for joining me. All right, this might work better. One way or another, I'm live. Either I'm trying to do it to where it's live on the stream, and I think that it is. I think it's live on the event. So if let's see if anybody's going to join. If somebody joins live on the event, I would love for you to put a comment down below saying I'm on the event. And then it's also live on my Facebook profile. So I'm sure some people might be seeing it there. And then it's going to be live on the Whitman Collective YouTube channel also. And here we are. So, as I said before, this is episode 17 of Rooted for Growth. And this episode is going to be an interesting episode because it's about anger. I'm doing all these series of grief. And last week I talked a little bit about denial. Also, I talked about the oil of joy. I say last week, it's yesterday when it got released. So if you haven't listened to that, go listen to that. It's the episode 16, Oil of Joy. It's available now on Spotify or wherever, Apple Podcast or wherever else you get your podcast from. The Oil of Joy. That was a good episode. But I talked a little bit about denial, and that's the first stage of grief. When it's not the first stage as far as like in order, because they don't really come in a certain order, but it's the first one that's listed usually when you talk about what are the stages of grief. Denial is usually the first one. So I talked about that last episode. This episode is focused on anger. So I've been working on this episode now, the script, for a couple of days. And as I was thinking about it and writing through the script, I thought, you know what, man, I've got a really good story that relates to anger. Last time for denial, I I brought up the story of, everybody goes through denial in grief. Pretty much, I would pretty much say that the majority of people go through denial. I did. Let me say it that way. I went through denial. As I was there in the hospital, I remember saying, "This can't be real. This can't be what's really happening." That's denial. And then every morning when I'd wake up and she wasn't there, and I had to remind myself again of like what had happened. That's denial as well. So I walked through some of those last week. This week, when I'm talking about anger, there's this one specific story that came to mind. And I'll go ahead and tell you a little bit of it now. I'm going to say this on the podcast as well, but I was invited to invited. There was a funeral that happened a couple months ago now, and it was a friend of mine from church, from a previous church that I went to. Her husband died suddenly, and so I went to this funeral. And I walked in, I saw several people that I recognized, that I remembered from the church, talked to a few people. And then I remember, like, there was this one woman that was across the way, across the sanctuary. And I saw her and she saw me. I recognized who she was. And as soon as she saw me, her demeanor changed. Like, she recognized, oh, that's Troy. I haven't seen Troy out in a while since his wife died. I could kind of read that on her face in this expression. So she starts coming over towards me, and I knew what was going to happen next, because like I've been. This was 2 3 months ago, 2 months ago now, I guess. So it's been 8 months since my wife had passed by this time when this funeral happened. And so I knew what was coming because it had happened several times prior to this. So I see her walking over towards me. I see her come towards me. She reaches her hand out and gives me this kind of very soft handshake. She tilts her head a little bit and just kind of gets this look on her face, little pouty look. And she's like, "How are you doing?" Man, boy, I tell you, over the last year, especially when anger was really kind of right there at the surface, that that question, that question of "how are you doing," just, oof, man, it just got to me because it puts you as a grieving person, it puts you right back in the situation. Like you're not able to escape from it. This is life now. And so this person recognizes that, you are someone who has been hurting and it's been on their mind, and it's no fault to them at all. They don't know, they don't know what to say in a moment like that. What else do you say? You from their perspective, they genuinely want to know, how are you doing? From the griever's perspective, it's a reminder of the grief. It's a reminder of the situation that they're in. And there's not really a good answer to say, because if you say, oh man, I'm doing great. That's odd. That's an odd thing to say. You lost your wife. You can't be doing great. And then if you say, man, it's terrible. Really, every day is awful. Then it's like there's like that's what you're supposed to say, I guess. But that's not where I was. Like I was doing good. I was moving forward in life. So I don't know. I don't want to say that either. So you're in the strange situation where you have to answer something, and you have to answer something that's satisfying to the person who's asking the question. And then you have to also be truthful at the same time. So I would find like a certain phrase, like, I'm getting by. I'm doing, it's a struggle, but I'm doing okay. Something along those lines to kind of move past that question. But it would always bring some anger up in me of the situation. Like it's a reminder of this person. The only reason why they're asking me this is because of the situation that I'm in. So it just brings a little bit of anger. And so I use that example in today's episode. So I'll read that on the podcast here in a little bit. But I thought, you know what, that's a perfect example for anger. So yeah, that's what that is. I'm going to go to this and see if just to see if I'm missing anything over here. I don't think I am. Yeah. I think I'm probably good to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to get started here in just a minute. That's not what I want to see. That's what I want to see. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here in just another minute. And we'll go from there. What is this? Okay. So thanks for joining me on today's live. I hope that you enjoy it. Okay. Da, 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 da. Perfect. Perfect. All right. Sorry, just getting some of the stuff all situated. I am recording this on my recording program. Almost said platform. On my recording program, in case you're wondering, I use a program called Reaper to record all of my audio, and that's what I'll go back and I'll look at after this episode to actually put together the audio version of the podcast. So throughout the recording, you might see me make a snap. That just puts a spike in the timeline, and that helps me when I go back to edit it, because I can see where that spike is, and I know that everything that's before that spike is something that I need to review. Like sometimes if I'm reading something and I say something incorrectly, or I cough or something happens in my mouth or whatever, I'll just snap. It makes that line in the audio, and then I'll know when I go back to that spot that something happened right before that I'm trying to edit out. So I'm going to snap here in just a minute. Hopefully those other snaps didn't mess up future Troy when it comes to editing the audio. So I'll do that here in just a minute, and then we'll get started on reading through the episode. And then just so you know, after the episode is complete, then I'll come back and see if there are any comments or anything to follow up on. And then we'll roll on with our Wednesday. How about that? All right. I'm going to go ahead and get started with the audio podcast. Get this set up to go here. Another sip of coffee. A nice cough away from the microphone. And we will get started right now. I remember standing at a funeral not long after Aaron had passed away. I looked across the room and I caught someone's eyes. It's someone that I recognized and she recognized me. Their expression shifted the second that they saw me. They started walking towards me, and I already knew what was coming. It's the dreaded question. You know the one. The soft handshake, the tilted head, the slightly pouted lip. And then, how are you doing? Man, I hated that question. How am I doing? Like, really? How am I doing? I just lost my wife. How do you think that I'm doing? I didn't say that. I wanted to. There's no right answer to that question. If I said I'm doing good, then I felt judged, like, you just lost your wife. How can you be doing good? But if I said I wasn't doing well, then people would nod and almost with a look of satisfaction be like, yeah, that's how you're supposed to feel. Then, after that exchange, came this look of pity. Pity didn't help me. I don't want pity in that moment. Pity made me angry. But I never let any of this show. I would just swallow that anger down. I would mirror their expression back to them. And usually I'd just say, I'm getting by. That became my way of navigating those conversations, keeping up appearances while something else boiled inside of me. That's the thing about grief. Anger has a way of sneaking in. Sometimes it's quiet, and sometimes it's explosive. And if we don't know how to handle it, anger can consume us. But it doesn't have to. Anger can actually be a path to growth if we learn how to process it in a healthy and God-honoring way. I'm going to put a pause right here. This is actually where my sponsorship is going to come in for this episode. Let me glance over here real quick. Yeah, so the sponsorship for this episode is me. And I'm going to talk again this week. The sponsorship is going to be the sponsor for the next couple of episodes. But it has to do with my 7 prayers for a grieving heart. So right here in the podcast, if you're listening on audio, you're not going to hear any of what I'm talking about right now. This is just for the live. But I'll put a little sponsorship piece right here that talks about 7 prayers for the grieving heart. It's a PDF that I put together because of times like this, because of those people who, who are dealing with this stage of grief, which today is anger. out of these types of situations, I put together this prayer list. And these 7 prayers mirror the stages of grief. The first 5 are denial and anger and bargaining and acceptance and depression. But then the next 2 are things that kind of follow up with that, like gratitude and what's the other one? Serving others, I think, or helping others. Anyways, it's 7 prayers made to be kind of like a daily prayer routine, but it's for those people who are grieving that they don't know what to pray. And this is completely free. It's 100% free. You just need to go to my website and download it. That was fun. It was very interesting. My audio that I'm recording, I forgot that I've got some music in there. So as I'm sitting here telling you about the 7 prayers for the grieving heart, my intro music came on in my ears. So that was fun. It's like I was live in my own podcast. All right, so that's what this sponsorship segment is about, is that 7 prayers for grieving heart. You can get that for free at whitmancollective.com/grief. And it's absolutely free. Just go to whitmancollective.com/grief and download your copy today. All right. As I come back to the episode, I'm going to do the actual intro and the welcome piece. So we're going to do that now. Welcome to the Rooted for Growth podcast, where we talk about life, faith, and becoming the person God created us to be. I'm your host, Troy Whitman, and today we're talking about anger, specifically how it shows up when we're grieving. And here's the truth. Anger isn't something to be ashamed of. It's one of the most common experiences in grief. And when we understand it, anger can actually become a teacher. So let's walk through what anger does to us. It's nice. So let's walk through what anger does to us, how to handle it in a healthy way, and what God's Word says about it. Let's start here. Anger is not random. It's a natural reaction built into us by God. When we're hurt, when something feels unfair, when we lose someone that we love, anger rushes in like an alarm bell. Our brain gets the message, something is not right here. The amygdala, it's that little almond-shaped part of your brain, it lights up and it shouts, danger! Like, you remember the robot from the what show was that? That robot that goes, danger, Will Robinson, danger. That's what your amygdala does when something happens like this. That alarm floods our body with adrenaline and cortisol. Our hearts beat faster, our muscles tighten up, breathing changes. It's your body preparing to fight or to flee. But here's the problem. When that anger never gets processed, when we keep swallowing it down or exploding in unhealthy ways, our body stays in overdrive. And living in that state for too long, it actually hurts us. But here's the good news. When we process anger well, it can actually help release the pressure. I think about that like an Instant Pot. You know, if you ever had an Instant Pot or a pressure cooker from, the olden days when you put that on top of the stove and you cook with a pressure cooker, there's this valve on the top. And you got to let that valve pop open and let the steam out, or else everything inside of it's going to blow up. So you've got to release that pressure in order to get clarity. That can even motivate you to take steps that you've been avoiding. Anger can fuel growth, not just fire destruction. But when we process anger well, it can actually help us release that pressure. It can give us clarity. It can even motivate us to take steps that we've been avoiding. Anger can be the fuel for growth, not just the fire for destruction. So, how do we do that? How do we keep anger from consuming us? Well, Dr. Gary J. Oliver, one of the contributors to the Care and Counsel Bible, offers 4 really practical steps for cultivating healthy anger. In the first step, he says, be aware of your anger. You need to notice it early, feel it within your body, and admit to yourself instead of pretending that it's not there. Second, admit your anger honestly. Don't bury it. Bring it before God in prayer. Write it down in a journal or share it with a trusted friend or a counselor. So first, be aware of your anger. Second, admit your anger honestly. And then third, evaluate your anger. Ask, what's really going on beneath this? Sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's injustice. Or it's the ache of loss. But naming that anger and what it is, it brings clarity. So first, be aware of your anger. Second, admit your anger honestly. Third, evaluate your anger. And then the fourth step that Dr. Oliver gives is express it in a God-honoring way. That doesn't mean yelling or slamming doors. It means choosing outlets that are constructive. I've seen people take anger and pour it out into their art, painting with like a raw kind of honesty that they didn't know was in them. Others have written music or songs that came from a place of deep hurt and frustration. For me, it looked like walking. I had been walking a 5-mile route several times a week, but one day the anger in me was just ready to boil over. So instead of exploding at someone, I decided I would just walk it out. That day I ended up walking 10 miles, double what I normally did, simply because I needed to get that energy out of me in a way that was healthy. That's the power of expressing anger in the right direction. It can fuel action and creativity and even growth. I love how Dr. Oliver puts it. Anger isn't automatically sinful. It's what we choose to do with it that determines whether it brings healing or harm. And that's exactly what Scripture says. In Ephesians 4:26, it tells us, "Be ye angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath." Anger itself isn't wrong. The danger comes when we let it control us. In James, it reminds us, "Let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. For the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God." Slow it down. Just breathe and slow it down. Listen more. Respond less. And in Proverbs 14:29, it says, "He that is slow to wrath is of great understanding, but he that is hasty of spirit exalteth folly." Patience in anger is actually wisdom. These verses remind us that God doesn't ask us to deny our anger. He asks us to handle it wisely, to keep it from turning into something destructive. Now, let's bring this back to grief. Of all of the stages, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, anger is probably, of all of those, I'm pretty sure anger is probably the most universal. Not everyone will feel denial. Not everyone will sit in bargaining. But almost everyone will face anger at some point in the grieving process. It can show up at God or at circumstances. It can even show up at ourselves. You can be angry with yourself in a situation. For some, it passes quickly. It's just a quick flash of anger. For others, it lingers for a while. And it doesn't always just come once. Anger can resurface months or even years later. The important thing isn't to skip over it or feel guilty for it. The important thing is to process it. Because when we handle anger in a healthy, God-honoring way, it keeps us moving forward in grief instead of being stuck in it. So let me ask you, how does anger usually show up for you? Do you shut it down and grow quiet? Or do you find yourself lashing out? What might be your anger? What might your anger be revealing beneath the surface? Is it fear? Is it a sense of injustice or loss? This week, I'd encourage you to write down one moment of anger and be honest with one moment of anger. Write that down. Tell God exactly how you feel. He's a big God. He can take it. Tell him exactly how you feel in that anger. And then ask him to show you what's really going on underneath. Ask him to redirect that energy into something that helps you grow. If you're walking through grief right now and anger is just bubbling up at the surface, please hear this. You're not broken and you're not alone. Anger is one of the most common stages of grief. Almost everyone feels it. God isn't afraid of your anger. In fact, he invites you to bring it to him. And when you do, anger doesn't have to be the barrier to your healing. It can actually become a bridge toward it. Thank you for listening to this episode. If this encouraged you, please share it with a friend who's walking through grief. And if you'd like a resource to help guide you in prayer through grief, download my free PDF, 7 Prayers for the And if you'd like a resource to help guide you in prayer through grief, download my free PDF, 7 Prayers for the Grieving Heart, at whitmancollective.com/grief. Please make sure that you subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. Please like and comment and all the fun things. Thank you for listening to Rooted for Growth. We'll see you next week. Bye. That's me signaling the end of the recording. So we'll see if that's good. Hopefully that's good. All right. That was episode 17, Turning Anger into Growth. Good. I don't see on here a good way to see stuff. I need to get better at this, I think. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, it's not really doing anything either. Okay, cool. Hey, so if you have joined me on this journey, thank you. Thank you for watching. I'm going to try to release a live every week when I am working on my podcast. I just think it's, if you want to interact with me, it's a time that I'm sitting in front of my computer and you can interact with me. And then if you're watching it later, please know that typically I would like to do lives on Friday. typically, because that's usually when I'm recording my podcast. However, in the month of September, my schedule is a little crazy. This week on Friday, I will be at a men's retreat with my church, so I'm not available to record on Friday, and that's why I'm recording today. Next week, I will not be able to record on Friday because of a special event that's going on, that I'll be away from the house for the majority of the day, just celebrating a special day with Michelle, actually. Just having a nice day. Her birthday is on Thursday, so we're just having a nice day on Friday. And then on the following Friday, I'm not going to be able to record on that Friday either, because that's the AACC conference. That's the American Association of Christian Counselors conference that's happening in Nashville, Tennessee, and I will be attending that all week from Wednesday through Saturday. So I can't record next Friday either. But going forward after September, the idea is to record on Fridays. And if that needs to move around a little bit, maybe it needs to move to a Thursday eventually, just to make sure that I can get a recording in, because Fridays are a busy day. I'll push it to that day. But I'm hoping that you all will join me on future lives like this. I really appreciate you listening and watching. And hopefully this is a benefit to you and kind of breaks up your day a little bit. But for now, I will say goodbye, and we'll see you next week. Sometime next week. Watch for updates online. I'll try to post before day of. But yeah, watch for that next time, and have a great rest of your week, and be good.